Hey guys, welcome to my channel and I'm back again with another really interesting video. And in this video guys, as you can see on my screen, we are going to discuss a newly given integration by Hugging Face, that is the Hugging Face into LangChain integration, which is a revolution in my sense because LangChain is one of the packages that was one of the first generative AI packages which was released by OpenAI. So most of us have been using LangChain packages to actually create our own AI bots or create our own generative AI projects. And now that Hugging Face has released in integration into LangChain, it becomes really easier for us to use Hugging Face models with LangChain APIs to create our own, AI or ML projects. So without taking any time further, let's dive into this. First of all guys, I will definitely put this blog into the description below, so you don't have to worry about what's written here. We are just going to look into it and also look into this Google Colab notebook that I have created for you guys to start experimenting with this package. Okay, so let's jump right into it. So first of all guys, to actually use this LangChain Hugging Face integration package, we first have to install it. Okay, so to install it, the command is going to be pip install LangChain Hugging Face. And once you have done that, you are ready to use the packages. Now you guys might ask me this question that, oh, why do we need this integration? If you are mostly into using Hugging Face, you might not need this integration, but I'll tell you why. The thing is guys that LangChain provides us a ecosystem of a lot of packages, lot of APIs that we can easily use to create a RAG pipeline. Okay, now what is a RAG pipeline guys? If you guys are not familiar with it, then let's just give you an example, right? So this is a huge blog post that I have here, right? A lot of text is written into it. Now let's say I don't want to read into all this text. I just want to feed it into an AI model and ask my one liner, give one word answer on it. Okay, so for example, give me the API, the LangChain integration API to load a model, to create a pipeline, right? If I have got such very straightforward questions from a document, then it is most efficient to actually create a RAG pipeline where you have got all your documents, all your data in a certain context, in a certain repository, and you're just taking the context from those documents. You are actually basically querying those documents through an AI model. Okay, and you can do that with the help of a RAG pipeline model, a RAG pipeline ecosystem, I can say, which was provided by LangChain. Okay, so if you have been building the applications around that RAG pipeline ecosystem, it is most likely that you are already using LangChain packages. So it becomes much easier to actually use Hugging Face LangChain integration so that you can use Hugging Face models much easier. Okay, so that is why we need this integration package. Now let's look into what features this package actually provides us and how we can use it in Python. Okay, so let's jump into it. We have already gotten past the installation part, so I'm going to skip this one and going to the next one. The next part is guys, how you can actually create your own pipeline. So if you are using transformers guys, you already know that once you go to a model, you can use classes like auto tokenizer, auto model casual for LLM. You can use these classes to load your model, to add your model into a pipeline, and then you can invoke that pipeline to answer any question or to basically generate a text, right? Now, those are the APIs that you could have used with Hugging Face transformers. But we want to use LangChain pipeline, right? We want to use a pipeline that is most compatible with LangChain ecosystem. So for that, Hugging Face, I would say LangChain Hugging Face has come up with a class called as Hugging Face pipeline. Okay. To actually use this class object, all you have to do is Hugging Face pipeline from model ID. You provide your ID, you provide a task. Now here the task could be of four types guys. The task could be a text generation task, it could be a summarization task, it could be text generation, summarization, translation, and it could also be a text to text generation task. Okay, if you guys have issues in remembering this, read this blog post guys, and everything is written here as well. Okay, so here are the four type of tasks that you can actually provide, and on the basis of that, this pipeline is going to act. Okay, so if your model is more used for text generation, the pipeline is going to act accordingly. However, now it is time to actually provide certain hyperparameter tuning to your pipeline, right? For example, the temperature value. Now, the temperature value basically determines the randomness of your answers. So if you are using text generation or story generation, if you want to generate a story or some sentence or some essay or some paragraph, right, you need it to be more random. So you need to keep your temperature value to a minimum. But if you have got something called a summarization, something like question answering, you do want your answers to be accurate, right? So in that way, you can increase your temperature value so that you don't get that much randomness in your answers. But that's just one example, guys. When you're using something called as a RAG pipeline, you have got a whole lot of documents to actually read through to get the answers. Then a lot of parameters become of much more importance. For example, something called as context length, right? So if you've got a huge document, you might need to increase your context length because you need that context to be entered into your model to make sure that you answer it well, right? Certain parameters that you need to fine tune, you can provide in the pipeline keyargs. And then finally, when your LLM model, which is actually the equivalent of your LangChain ecosystem LLM model, is created, then you can just do llm.invoke and you pass the question in it. For example, the question here was Hugging Face is. Now I have used a model ID, Tiny Llama model ID here, guys, and you can see that it starts to load my model and then finally generates that Hugging Face is a company that provides AI-powered speech recognition technology, blah, 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 right? Now, the question you might ask me is, why did I use something called as Tiny Llama? Because, guys, I am a very memory poor, a GPU poor, and in a nutshell, very poor person in terms of trying these ML models as of now. If you are a rich guy, if you have got the memory, then you can use anything to actually run this pipeline. Now, why do I need to be rich for that? Because when you are using Hugging Face pipeline, this is actually executing the model or actually loading the model in your memory cache. So if your model is 10 GB big, it is going to load the entire model on your machine, on your local machine in a cache, and then invoke it from there to answer the query. Now, if you got no memory like me, I have to be satisfied with using Tiny Llama because this was just a tutorial. But if you are using an enterprise level, then you can use any model you want, given that you do have enough RAM in your machine. But for us who do want to actually use bigger models, but again we are memory poor, then Hugging Face gives us something called as Hugging Face Endpoint. Now what this Hugging Face Endpoint does, it is doing the same thing. It is creating your LLM, but it is not actually loading the model in your cache. It is actually invoking this query on a server which is a Hugging Face server. So for that reason, you need the Hugging Face endpoint to have the repo ID, which is nothing but the path of the model. And then everything else is going to be the same, the task, the token, the sample, the arguments, whatever you want to give it. But the important thing here is that in Hugging Face endpoint, you do provide the API token. Why? Because you are invoking this model on Hugging Face server. You're not invoking it on your machine. You're not loading it on your machine. So when you do Hugging Face, when you do llm.invoke, what it is actually doing is it is actually sort of running an inference endpoint, right? So if I show you any of the model, let's see the meta model, right? Let's see the meta llama 333 model. So in this model, guys, you can see here that okay, this one doesn't have an inference endpoint. Let's say if there is maybe phi model or some other model that gives us an inference endpoint. So there you go, right? So in this phi 3 model, you can see that you have got an inference API, and you can write your sentence here, hi, and then you can send it, and it is actually invoking the model on the Hugging Face server, and then it is going to answer my query. It is going to load the messages, to send the prompt and answer my query, right? So in this way, Hugging Face has provided you an API but you can actually use that API as a Hugging Face endpoint. So you don't invoke the model on your machine, you do it on Hugging Face server, just like you do the inference API on Hugging Face user interface. Okay, so if you don't have that much memory like me, I would suggest do this. And you can see here that I have used Meta Llama 3B, this which is a heavier model definitely. And it does say Hugging Face is excited to announce the release of the Hugging Face Transformers library, blah blah blah. So obviously the answer is much better than the previous one because we were not using that good of a model, but at the same time you are not actually executing it on your local. So if you are somebody who do like to have everything on your local machine, keep their data private, don't use Hugging Face endpoint, use a previous Hugging Face pipeline that I have shown you. Now going to the next part, which is chat Hugging Face. Okay, what is chat Hugging Face, guys? So there are certain LLMs, right, which have a certain way of getting the answers much more accurate if you give them a very well formatted chat template. Okay, very well formatted prompt template, right? Because we all know that there are literally YouTube channels, literally course tutorials on prompt engineering, which is very important, because if you have got a good prompt, you will get a good answer. So there are certain large language models which have got their own chat templates, and if you actually use those chat templates to complete the prompt with your input messages, that large language model is going to give you a better result. So if you want to actually use those chat templates with your large language model, then LangChain Hugging Face gives you something called as chat Hugging Face. Okay, so what you have to do is, if you create your endpoint just like normally that I created before, all you have to do is pass that large language model in chat Hugging Face. Now this gives you a large language model that is wrapped inside that chat template. So when you do the LLM engine invoke Hugging Face, this is going to take this input message and put it into that chat template and then answer your query. I will show you the example which is given in the blog post as well, and that is somewhere here. So you can see that the way it says is Hugging Face, LLM invoke Hugging Face is, it is actually doing is something out as this, right? So for Mistral AI model, it is actually putting this input string in between these markup tags, and with Meta Llama, it is actually putting this input string Hugging Faces instead of these tags, right? So you have got different chat template for different LLM models. Now if you want to know which chat template your model has, you can actually click some of the links here. So this link is chat template link, and you can see that they have mentioned a lot of models here. Facebook Blender bot, they have mentioned Mistral 7B mod, and there are multiple models that they have mentioned here, right? And then you can use these chat templates, or you can, some of the models, the chat templates are already present. And to learn more about chat templates and different models, you can also visit this space as well, which is called as the chat template viewer space. And here, whichever model you specify, so let's say if I have specified the Meta Llama model and I select, I just add some of my token or whatever I want to do, and I click on submit. Let's say if I don't submit anything, you can see that this is the by default template of this model, Meta Llama. So whichever large language model that you want to use, you can just put the name here, and then you can find out what chat template it is. Now the question is that Meta Llama and all these Facebook models or Microsoft models, they are all very well renowned models. Okay, they are all very well known. So for these models you will find the chat templates already. But let's say if I created my own model I don't have any chat template for that already in Hugging Face space, right? So if you put that model in this space, this one, let's say if I put my own custom model, custom whatever, I created this model and I put it here, I will not get any response. I will probably get an error, right? So when you are using chat Hugging Face, you make sure that your LLM does have a chat template. If it doesn't have a chat template, then you will get an error here. Okay. Now, if you want to know about how we can create our own chat templates, that is a part that I haven't explored yet. But if you are interested in that, then let me know in the comment section below. I can actually research on that. But for now, if you are using some well-renowned models, 100% they might already exist in the chat templates, so you can just use the chat Hugging Face for them and to make sure that you actually get better answers. And again guys, Hugging Face Endpoint I am using here. If you are using Hugging Face pipeline, you know that it's gonna execute locally, but I am using Hugging Face Endpoint just so that I can save some memory. And then last but not the least, in fact, one of the most important part of this Hugging Face LangChain integration is the introduction of something called as Hugging Face embeddings. Okay, so if you are using RAG pipeline or that LangChain ecosystem to answer questions from documents, then we all know that we actually have to use something called as embeddings to convert your documents, to convert your text into a numeric format, because your computer doesn't understand text, it understands numbers. So that is also the use of auto tokenizer as well, that converts your text into numbers, right? But in case of LangChain, in case of RAG pipeline, we actually use something called as embeddings, which actually converts your documents, your text into numbers, into vectors, and then you can pass that into your large language model to get the answers from it, to get text generation, summarization from it, right? So with LangChain, there is document embeddings or whatever embeddings, OpenAI embeddings. There are certain other classes. But in case of Hugging Face, you have got something called as Hugging Face embeddings, right? And Hugging Face is full of embedding models. You can actually try to explore them. But just an example, I have used here the Mixed Bread AI, MXBAI Embed Large V1 model. So all you have to do is take your embedding model, place it inside the Hugging Face embeddings, model name, and then you provide the text, and then you do hf embedding dot embed documents and pass the text inside it. So if you have got a document, you can take the sentence by sentence of that document, you can start putting them in a list, you can pass that list here. Okay. Obviously there are other Hugging Face embedding as well, which you can definitely explore through the model name. Now again guys, if you are using Hugging Face embeddings, you are actually creating the embeddings on your local machine. But if you are memory poor like me, you don't have enough memory, you don't have enough money to pay for a Google Colab Pro subscription, you can use something called as Hugging Face Endpoint embeddings, which actually executes this entire thing on Hugging Face and provides you a embedding object. And that you can see that once I do embed documents, it converted everything into vector and I get my result. And I can use these embeddings to actually put them into my RAG pipeline as a vector store and then answer questions on that. Okay. So if you want to use it on a Hugging Face server, I would recommend using endpoint embeddings. Obviously, remember guys that you have to provide your Hugging Face API token here. I have not given my token because I don't want it to be misused. Just replace this notebook wherever I have written HF token with your own token, so you can start exploring with it. Okay. So that was the video guys. That is the important integration of Hugging Face and LangChain, which definitely is going to help a lot of AI developers in their machine learning and generative AI projects. So if you guys have like this video, if you guys like this type of content, then please do not forget to like this video and share this video with your friends. And if you really like my content, guys, if you like watching these AI ML videos, you want to see more of it, then please do not forget to subscribe to this channel, guys. Please do subscribe and hit the bell icon for future notifications of more such programming and coding related and AI related videos. I'll see you guys in the next video, guys. Until then, take care and bye bye.